My guest today is Neil O'Connor. Neil's a fourth generation mortuary owner and funeral director. He was in the industry 30 years. When he first got involved in his family's mortuary, they were serving about 200 families every year. And by the time he retired in 2020, they were serving almost 1,400. Neil brought a lot to the industry. His love for people, he was very forward thinking, and a high bar for excellence. Neil no longer works in the industry. He reinvented himself in commercial real estate. But don't let that fool you. Neil continues to speak and consult on it. And that's partly why he was willing to come on the show. You're going to love Neil. He's a funny guy, loves people. He's a great husband, an amazing dad, and been a longtime friend of mine. I hope you love him too. Neil O'Connor. Hi, buddy.
Hey Keith, good to see you, pal.
Man, thanks so much for doing this. As people will see, you will be podcast, 001. And so they'll be like, dude, he got Neil O'Connor as his first guest. How on earth did he pull that off?
001, they call me.
Yeah, that's right. So I appreciate you being here as a guest to Beyond the Grave. And I'm looking forward to us having a lively, I get it, a lively conversation.
Oh,
We'll
we're
probably
gonna
have a
throw
lot
all
of
those
death
around.
death jokes along the way.
Absolutely.
Yours will be funnier because they'll be, just because you're funnier than me. So
Of course.
of course, right?
Yeah, but you're better looking, so it's all good.
I
It
don't,
equals
I
out
don't, I
now.
don't think so at all.
Yeah.
However, this screen adds a lot of weight to my face. I think, or it's the beard. But so here we go, my friend. So I will have already introed you, just so you know this. But
Sure.
I'm super glad you joined me on this podcast. And for those people who don't know much about you, we're going to dive right in. So you grew up in a family with in the mortuary industry. How far back though did that go?
Yeah.
Your
Um,
family's involvement.
my great grandfather started a partnership in 1898 in Los Angeles. So I was a fourth generation funeral director, Keith. I never ever thought I'd get into the profession
Wow.
and absolutely loved it. Worked in it for 30 years, wrestled with it, cried with people, served my close friends and family. It was, just something you don't expect. I really did not expect to be in that field. But when I look back on it, I have great admiration for the people who are in it, the time I spent in it. And of course, you and I went shoulder to shoulder for some time and we've served a lot of families together. So, I love being able to talk with you and relate of our time, and we're
Yeah.
continue to become friends. And we talk about everything from our faith to our failures to what scares the you know what out of us. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited to dive in with you.
Good. So how do you think growing up in that industry impacted your own view and conversations around the dinner table and things like that around death and dying that maybe most kids in the neighborhood and in our community didn't have?
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't anything that was at the front of the mind. It wasn't anything that my friends said or made fun of. When you're a kid, it's pretty blissful. My
Mhm.
best friend's dad was an orthodontist, had an idea what he did. It didn't have any impact. I think the same thing. Um, my dad, it's not that he didn't talk about work, but we went and visited some of the funeral homes at times because mom would be doing chores and we stopped by. So, as I look back, it slowly was something that was, I say semi-normalized for me. That it's
Mhm.
just, yeah, this is what we do. But it wasn't
Right.
really talked about a whole lot, or, um, I never had any relationships where people were like, oh my God, well, I did at one of our events in San Juan. We have a San Juan Summer Nights, and a lady came by, grabbed a bowl of candy, we handed out tchotchkes, shook my hand, and then looked back and said, oh my God, and like wiped her hand off like I'm contagious, like I'm the one carrying death. So that was really the only thing that ever would just made me laugh. And I like to think I have a sense of humor, so I just respectfully said, "Don't worry, it won't kill you, but it'll catch you."
Exactly.
So yeah, it wasn't anything that was on my mind growing up. As I mentioned, when we were
Yeah.
kids, we were skateboarding, we were causing trouble, we were just
Yeah.
doing kid things. So it never was really anything that I was even kind of talking about, I guess. But
Yeah.
I do have fond memories. You've made me think back about first time visiting the funeral home, playing hide and go seek in a funeral home because I'm one of
Wow.
seven. We had to do something, but we knew we had to be quiet and don't wake up the lady in the chapel
Right.
because or else we're all going to be in trouble.
Right. If you do that, we're
Yeah.
all in trouble. That's right.
Serious refunds are going to come back to the family.
Right. So, like, I mean, were you around your grandfather? Were you around him?
No, unfortunately, my grandfather died prematurely.
Okay.
He was probably late 50s, which I am now.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I never met my grandfather on both sides of the family. The crazy thing I may have shared with you, my mom's side of the family were funeral home owners, and so was my dad's.
Oh, I
And
didn't know your mom's was
Johnny
too.
Cox, my mom's Jane Cox, Joe O'Connor, my grandfathers were best friends. They met through the funeral procession or
What?
procession. There I go. Funeral profession. Um,
Right.
and my grandfather, Joe O'Connor, was best man at John Cox's wedding. So I
What?
should have a tattoo that says "Born to Bury" right here. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And do you think your dad grew up knowing was there pressure on him, your dad, to be involved in it? Does he talk about it? Did he feel like because his dad modeled it, he was happy to take the reins when his dad did?
No,
What?
no, not at all. Not at all. My
Yeah.
dad, I've talked to him about that. He wanted to be a pilot in the Navy.
Yeah. Okay.
Because of his vision, he couldn't.
Yeah.
So he was in the Navy. He served. I'm third generation in the military as well, in the Navy specifically.
Yeah.
My dad had aspirations to become a teacher,
Mm.
but when he literally met my mom at my grandfather's funeral. So this is really weird. I know. Get the banjo out for God's sake.
Totally.
Then they started dating, and my dad went after college into the military. They dated, got married, and next thing you know, they had a baby. And he's like, you know what? I've got to get a job, and entered into the profession. And
Yeah.
then a couple years later, my grandfather died, and it was thrust upon him to run
Wow.
three funeral homes that were very well known back in the day in Los Angeles. So your life just unfolds, and things are I
Yeah.
don't say handed to you, but
Yeah.
I guess your calling can meet you in just various circumstances. Kind of same thing for me.
Right.
I never thought it was my destiny.
Yeah.
And it was
Crazy.
and to answer your question, for my family, I'm the youngest seven. My dad never put any pressure about us doing anything related to, the
Okay.
mortuary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Well,
yeah.
we're gonna, in just a minute. I'm going to talk about how you some of your backstory getting into the industry. But first, what then took your family LA to Orange County, South Orange County specifically?
It was a partnership. It was called Cunningham and O'Connor at the time. The relationship was getting, I think, pulled in two different directions generationally. The other side of the family, I know, wanted to remain a certain model. My dad wanted to grow it. He's somewhat of an entrepreneur or visionary. At the same time, he had spent his childhood summers down in Laguna Beach. So between Laguna and
Mm,
Newport, he
yep.
got familiar with that beautiful sand and salt air, fell in love
I
with
can see
that,
that.
and then just
Right.
said, you know what? The environment in LA was changing too. So a combination of things. He literally found a piece of dirt in Laguna Hills, a piece of dirt for Laguna Hills for the funeral home, and then a piece of dirt in Laguna Niguel for his home, and built the two at the same time, which is, yeah,
Wow.
nine mouths to feed, or there's seven kids. Uh,
Right.
Pretty visionary, pretty
Wow.
strong spine, as I like to say.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
knowing you, I know you're a visionary also, and that's fun to see. Partly, partly maybe that's part of how you got that as well. Watching your dad do that. So I know you do some time in the military, and then also some time in hospitality. But did you have a taste of getting involved first in the working with your dad at all, or did you wait until both those things?
A little bit of both. So, my first job was working in a restaurant, washing dishes, and I moved all the way up from dishwasher, busboy, waiter, bartender, manager. I love being around people as you do.
Yeah.
I just love serving people as you do.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my entrance. I did work at the Ritz-Carlton, which branded, and I was only there at a very young age for like a summer, but I just
Oh.
kind of
Okay.
recognized people and I
Yeah.
recognized philosophy, and I'm like, there's something special here. It was just seeds that were getting planted.
Yep.
And then I worked, well, I met a man actually at the Ritz-Carlton who questioned me what I was doing and encouraged me because he found out what the family did to try it. Because what if in 20 years you look back and you never tried it? So I used that kind of lens to look 20 years forward. When I'm 40,
Wow.
can I reverse engineer and see that? And so
Yeah.
6 months later, that seed grew. I went over to my parents' house and said, I'm ready to take you up on that offer, Dad. And he had no idea what he was talking about because he said when I was 14, if you ever want to come work for me, let me know. That was it. And then I said, "Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
want to give it a try at the mortuary." And he probably fell over and had to pour himself a stiff whiskey. Like, really? I had seven
Uh-oh.
kids and you were it?
Right. The last one once
Yeah,
in.
the kid in the field tending the sheep,
Right.
the black sheep. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Right.
I literally had to borrow money from him, even though I had a job to get a couple suits and had to write a promissory note to pay him back.
Wow. I love that about him. Wow.
Oh yeah, no, you love them.
Yeah.
And I worked there for a couple years, and then just had a crazy turn. I wanted to go serve in the military, so I went in the Navy, did that, and then I came back, went back to school. School never resonated with me, but I tried it because I felt like everyone else has done this, fall in
Yeah.
line. And then I went back to the mortuary and started working. And, it's like any other job. If you put your time in, you work hard, you treat people right, you just see things starting to kind of grow out of it. But I never had any real vision when early on, like, where is this going? It's just a job. I mean, if you said, Neil, go dig a ditch, I'm happy doing that. When I was in the military and boot camp, you had to go clean toilets. Doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah.
I just look at it as stuff needs to get done.
Right. So you
Yeah.
get hired on early on. You're starting, I mean, to use corporate analogy, you're starting at the bottom and
Yep. So
doing whatever's asked of you. And how does that feel working kind of your dad's the big dog and you're working
yeah.
sort of for him, but maybe other staff? How did the other staff treat you? How did your dad treat you?
Yeah, good question. We were a very small company at the time, so there was probably six of us. So it was a
Okay.
small funeral home, probably serving 200, 250 families. Um, and you start at, like you said, the bottom, and you
Yeah.
work your way up, and that means long hours.
Yeah.
You get called in the middle of the night to go bring someone's loved one into your care. So you get called at 12 and go back to the mortuary. This is when we had Thomas guides, no GPS, and you'd have to look up the address and navigate to get there, then go get them, bring them into the mortuary, go home, and hopefully you get the rest of the night to sleep. But then you get back home about 3 in the morning, and then you'd go work a full shift, and God forbid if you had to work that evening too.
Wow.
So, the challenge in funeral service is sometimes just the manpower, the schedule, and the hours.
Mhm.
I never per se felt like I got burnt out from that because I was young at the time, but there's no way I could enter into that field and be doing that. And we changed a lot over the time where we didn't let our staff make what we call those transfers in the middle of the night just because we need them to be awake and on point during the
Yeah.
day when we're serving families. So that
Right.
was a shift and a change. And
Mhm.
everything we did, we always tried to look at two lenses: our team, what their lens was, what their potential burnout rate could be, or their satisfaction rate, and
Yeah.
then our families we served, and what is that, what I like to call human-centered care journey look like from the time
Mhm.
someone's on hospice to the time they either be buried, cremated, and then there's, a journey beyond that after a
Right.
funeral's over. Grieving
Right.
does not stop. It
Right.
has so many different adaptations that you know it. There's no one size fits all. Our relationship's unique. Your relationship to your two daughters is unique. So
Yep.
everything has I love Bill Hoy said it's almost like a kaleidoscope. You look through it and it's always changing. And if I
Yeah.
handed you it, you would see a whole different perspective than I would.
Right. Right. You mentioned Bill Hoyce. For people who don't know him, just give him a shout out to who he is or what he does because he's dynamic.
Yeah, Bill is amazing. He's been a dear friend and mentor to me early on. God, this is going back, dating myself 25 years. We worked with Bill, and he would help educate our clinical community. So anyone in hospice, RNs, for their continual education, and that was one of our big givebacks is that we would host and help the clinical field with their credentials. And so Bill would come in, give an hour or two talk. They'd get their CEs, and then it just kind of morphed into so many other just areas there where we were constantly learning. even when you're in the death care field, that does not mean you understand the grief journey. It doesn't mean you understand what leads up to it. It's very much like healthcare. It collides with healthcare, obviously.
Sure.
And as you know, doctors are not always well trained in some of the things that we just need practical understanding, compassion to be able to sit with people and sometimes not say anything. Where
Right.
I know from
Yeah.
my own failures, you say the wrong thing, it just doesn't feel right. So you and I have had those discussions for a long time of, sometimes the best rule of thumb is just be with someone.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Bill was
So
a great
back to Bill,
communicator of that. Yeah.
yeah, Bill was the biggest influencer next to my father, my mother, as far as how my lens constantly changed on, look at this way, try it this way.
Mm, good. Maybe we can get him on here sometime as a guest. You can. I'll pull some strings with you, and you can help me get him on.
Oh, I know he would. He would love to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So eventually, you become, the top dog. Your dad moves into like a board chair or something, in retirement. And how long does it take for you to become what was the title finally? CEO,
Yeah, that was the
president?
title. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I was there 30 years, so that was about halfway through there, give or take a year or two.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, it was a constant evolution of learning. And, for every one thing we learned, we probably failed on 20 other things. So, but that's life.
Yeah,
And
it is.
if you're okay with being vulnerable and failing and owning it, which sometimes you are, sometimes you're not, depending on the
Mm,
circumstances.
right.
It was a constant, I would say, us just tweaking things and trying to get people involved to get perspective because I definitely know this. I do not know everything. I am not the expert of anything, but I love just throwing things out and say, do you think this would work? And then shoot
Yeah.
holes through it. So we're constantly, our biggest, I think, things that I look back on is trying to figure out how we could serve our team because we knew the way we served them would have a impact on how they serve the team. And I mean, excuse
Yeah.
me, the families we served. And
Right.
so that journey itself was, like I said, a never-ending desire to see what needs to be shifted and changed.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
culture. Everything's about
Right.
culture.
Yeah.
Everything's about trying to do just modeling behaviors. And like I said, sometimes we did well, sometimes not so well,
You and I had a lot
self-included.
of conversations about culture during
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
time there, and I saw how passionate you were about culture.
Yeah.
So you're there ultimately overall, like this 30-year journey, like half of it is the running point, right?
Yeah.
Leadership. What would you say when you look back over that time? You say, man, we got to do a lot of different things, succeeded a lot, fail at a lot, learn a lot. What stands out as maybe one or two of your milestones or biggest successes or things you're most proud of now, looking back over your time in the industry?
Yeah, and it's probably what I referred to earlier is trying to reverse engineer. I call it human-centered care. What does that journey look like for the family and our team?
Mm,
Um, so family, obviously, someone dies. It could be a long journey before that death occurs or a short one. What are they going through? When they pick up the phone and call us, um, what do they need to hear? What are they feeling? What are they sensing? When they walk through our doors, what does that look like? I definitely took pride in trying to model after the Ritz-Carlton. Like when you walk into something, you can feel a vibration from a human to
yeah,
the aesthetics. So if you
yeah,
walk in and it's pleasing to your eye and all senses are getting addressed, soft music that's pleasing, a scent that's pleasing, someone who actually cares about you and greets you when you walk in and shows that, hey, I'll do my best to take care of you. I think we have done a great job of making that real.
mm,
And then I think connecting with people in the community so they knew that they could call us at any point in time for any resource. And that's really why we started. No one wants to hear this term, a marketing position, but it really turned into an
mm,
educational position and going out and educating people that it's always going to be a one-to-one ratio. We're all going to
yeah,
die.
yep,
And as you know, and I know we'll probably get into, our um, Western society is death denial. And why is that? We can talk about that for hours
Yeah.
in trying to make this experience as good as possible under some of the worst experiences. You know, there's so
Yeah.
many different ways we all are going to die, and some are just tragic, some are natural, and we've lived a full life, and it's just, hey, great grandpa's been blessed 105 years and he got to see everything
Right.
versus a I hate to even say it, but like a teen suicide. That's like, in my
Yeah.
mind, probably one of the worst things or
Ugh.
something of that nature. So, yeah, I would say just making sure our facilities were five-star and boutique, and our team felt valued and was supported, and they were the best of the best. And, you know, those are some, I think, very
Yeah.
great things to look at and examine. And
Mm.
and as I said, it wasn't me. It was a team effort to shape all that.
Absolutely.
But I had the pleasure of being a part of it.
Hmm. Yeah. So the mortuary industry, I mean, and the death industry as a whole, it's got its challenges, right? I mean, rather than me try to guess or give my little bit of what I think that is, talk to me about what you think some of the biggest challenges that face the mortuary cemetery industry as a whole.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say the umbrella we're going to say is the western region of Western United States, not just the United States, but our nation is in death denial. Why is that? Because we as the professionals haven't done a good job, I think, of being able to show the value. I think the tipping point was somewhere in the late 60s, early 70s when cremation became relevant. I think
Mm.
most funeral directors at that time just thought this is going to go away. It's a blip on the radar. If you look at Europe or Canada, they actually embrace cremation. What I mean by that is they will normally have the body present for a ceremony, then followed by cremation, then placing to some grave. So you
Right.
see these people are coming together as community, they're mourning together. And I think that's essentially what we need is to come together as community. So,
Mm.
um, it to me, I never cared if someone literally preferred cremation or burial because that's such a personal choice. I
Right.
cared that they understood the value of even if it was three people, six people,
Mm.
600 people getting together and examining what that person's story was about. Because let's
Yeah.
face it, we all have a story. We all have
Right.
highs and we all have lows.
Yeah.
And I can learn from you and have learned from you your highs and your lows. And once again, going back to Bill Hoy, I went to his mom's funeral and he honestly gave a great eulogy, just being very raw and vulnerable about his
Mm.
mom wasn't perfect. And he kind of rewound it. Why? Because of her childhood and what she was up against. So that formed her and her opinions and perception. So he held her in a place of there's so many pieces to my mom. Certain
Mm.
stuff are absolutely amazing. Stuff I constantly question. But so
Right.
I think to answer your question, why is most people not celebrating through maybe a funeral home? Maybe they're doing it at their church. Maybe they're doing it at their country club. Maybe they're doing it down at the beach. Is because we haven't done a good job of adapting and changing, saying
Mm.
we can help you celebrate this life in any arena, any area, any venue. Um, you and I know great event planners that you'll pay good money for. I mean, some people have weddings that cost
Oh,
outrageous amount of money.
yeah.
We've seen that where someone will do a cremation at whatever rate that is, but then have a party that costs $50,000 to celebrate. So it's
Yeah.
all value based.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's what are you getting? What's the perception you're getting? So I do have some colleagues in funeral service who do that very well and they understand that. And other ones who are stuck in a generational model of we've always done it this way. And
Mm.
that's a dangerous proposition.
Yeah. It sounds like my impression is the industry itself as a whole is slow to change. Is
Yeah.
that because a lot of them are family owned? Is it because it's death and and
I
people it's sacred and they don't want to change? I mean, why a whole industry so slow to change?
Yeah, my understanding is there's probably about 2,400 funeral homes in the nation. A third are corporately owned, so the other two-thirds are family owned and operated.
Yeah.
And statistically, I could be off base, give or take, but most private funeral homes, family owned, will see 100 to maybe 200 families, but that depends on region. So um, they are passed on generationally. So it's almost like we've always done it this way,
Yeah.
to be a thought leader, to be able to step out of your funeral home and pivot and look at a company such as Apple, Zappos, Ritz-Carlton, whatever, whoever
Right.
is relevant. And I don't even know if they're even relevant
Right.
anymore.
Right. But they were when you were
But back in the
also
day when
especially.
I
Yeah.
I was looking at companies, I was looking at people saying, "What are you doing? What's your secret sauce?" And so there were similarities. And some people, it doesn't matter the size of the funeral home, they're probably doing excellent care and very sincere. But why are they not growing? Why are they not adapting? I think it's bandwidth, and I think
Yeah.
I think like any profession you hear in healthcare, but it's in funeral service, it's challenging to staff. It's challenging to find
Hmm.
really good people. That's
Yeah.
at a premium. And I think ever since COVID, that's absolutely just, cha been a game changer. People got used to probably either not working, and funeral service is really hard. It's not an
Mm.
easy job.
Yeah.
It's physical, believe it or not. People don't realize that. It's very
Hmm.
labor intensive. AI will not overtake it, as far as I know.
Right. Right.
So you need
Right.
manpower, you need committed people, you need people who can think on the fly, be compassionate, pivot in a moment's notice and get it that. But when I had a small lens to look through for 30 years, uh, almost everyone I worked with had that spirit.
Hmm.
But there's so many variables why I think it's stagnant or not changing the way it could change. But there are
Yeah.
people who are making significant contributions out there, regardless of change or not.
Right. I know you guys, you talked about when early on you guys were maybe 200 or 250 families, and you meant what 200 to 250 a year you guys were serving, right?
That's correct.
In the heyday then, as O'Connor Mortuary grew, what did that number grow toward, and how did you deal with trying to bring that growth into the industry?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been probably 5 or 6 years since I've been there. I would say, guessing we may be serving 1,500 families now.
Okay.
And you've
That's
been in our,
huge.
yeah, it's huge. And you've been in our facilities. They're not large.
Right.
So it was constantly trying to figure out how do we do this the right way in a very small facility.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's, I give credit to the people who are there and were there. It was constantly a conversation of what do we need to do to get better.
Mm.
Um, yeah, yesterday was great. We served one of our families. We did well. They're highly satisfied, but today's a new day. And
Yeah.
this thing called death is going to keep coming at us, and the numbers are growing. And so, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but it was
No.
constantly just asking, what do we need to do better? And not being satisfied with, what we did last year. And it's not about a numbers, it's about thinking through it and how do we, you know, be better stewards of this profession
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
each other. And like I said, there was epic failures and epic great things we did, and
Yeah.
so yeah,
During my time, you guys had done so many upgrades, and from all the flooring and the paint and the furniture, and getting out of the pews and more into chairs and flat screens, right, and
yeah.
relevant colors and all that stuff. What was one thing that you tried to bring in from your like Ritz Carlton, high end service, high end boutique, that either the staff or the other leadership or the board was like, boo, they just were not having it? Was there anything that just died on the on the discussion brainstorm floor?
How much time do we have?
Really?
No, it's I'm trying to think. You know, changing out a crematory is not an easy proposition.
Right.
There's different technology and it changes over time. So at the end of my tenure there, I was trying to see if there was a better way, because technology does change, and we're so
Yeah.
limited by square footage. But I would say with the people I worked with, my partners, it was a constant conversation of does this make sense? And I was always wanting to uh, change, and that's not always healthy and good. It can
Sure.
fry people's brains. It can be overload. So there were times when people said, "Time out, too much information, too many
Right.
process, too much
Enough
change."
already.
So Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there was one epic thing. I can't remember. And if it comes to me, I'll
Yeah.
jump back into it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
there was, I would say, hopefully a good balance of, okay, let's do that, but let's do it next year.
Right.
It's not in the budget. Sorry, we don't have that money.
Yeah.
Or going to the people who are actually on the ground floor serving the families. Do you guys think this can be adapted and changed? Can you guys
Yeah.
implement it? Um,
Yeah.
because I probably threw too many things, not probably, too many ideas and thoughts, but that's the culture I wanted is people that just let's throw things out there. But that,
Right.
like I said, I recognize sometimes that's just not always in the best interest of the collective.
Yeah. So you mentioned, this our culture, and we'll talk more about this in a few minutes, but this whole death phobic culture, death denial culture, and yet there are also families that are trying to make either, how weddings are becoming more DIY or more unique, and not
Yeah.
as many people getting married in churches, and you probably got families saying, "Hey, we want to go do honor our loved one in different ways." And families are trying to say, hey, we want to either bury or celebrate the life of our loved one or have a funeral in this way. And are mortuaries and cemeteries trying to keep up? And are they finding tension between even trying to meet families creatively where families might want to be? Are families trying to still have to fit in the box? Or are families just trying to say yes to whatever the mortuary or cemetery is offering?
Oh, wow. Yes and yes. I think
Yeah.
families are doing their own thing. We know
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Um, because in all reality, if I have a very nice place to go that's not affiliated with you and you don't have a connection with there, why do I need you?
Right.
My church could be amazing, the aesthetics, the everything, the technology is there, or a golf club or a beach environment, or
Mhm.
just, what you're offering does not resonate with me. So you got to learn how to speak their language and figure that out. So
Yeah.
if you showed up, I'd have to try and look at you and say, okay, where's this guy coming from? And that would
Right.
be a series of questions of, where are you from, Keith? And tell me a little bit about your family. So we would try and do our best to, within 20 to 40 minutes, talk to the families and figure out not only the death story, but your
Right.
life story and what's important and listen. Because if you said church, 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 I probably shouldn't be offering you something at the golf club and
Right.
not immediately. Maybe that's going to be
Right.
the receptionist. But
Yeah.
as far as funeral homes adapting, I know people that's more the conversation now than it was 15 years ago. How do we adapt and become
Okay.
more event planners, more
Right.
thoughtful?
Yeah.
But it is really challenging to take it to an ownership and say, you need to change. Well, I need to
Yeah.
change. Look at my bottom line. Oh, your bottom line's going to erode. I can guarantee you, and it already has, and you know it. So be
Right.
vulnerable with me because
Yeah.
I have consulted since I've gotten out of our funeral home. And, we look at everything from the P&L to the staffing model to the demographics and just say, look at these numbers. They're constantly changing. What do you want to do with that? And you can stay in your model, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Or you can adapt and become more relevant and valued to your community where, you can still have traditional burial and cremation and everything in between.
Mm. Yeah. Your our timing of meeting was really spectacular and helpful for me because I was trying to make more meaning out of my life, having left all the ministry, church ministry stuff, and just saying I wanted to walk with people just through life. And my buddy Ty Rose said, "You should be a funeral celebrant." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Oh, I'm doing all these cool things." So I went to that training, and that's where I met one of the other owners, Jeff Turner, right? And then I find out it's owned by the O'Connor family, and then you guys really gave me my first shot in 2014 at becoming a funeral celebrant for you guys. And there weren't a lot of mortuaries yet that were starting to embrace a funeral celebrant as a storyteller. And I was so thrilled because you guys gave me enough work to fall in love with the process and meeting with families, walking into their home, falling in love with them, their story, their loved one's story, and helping them really weave a beautiful story. So you guys were giving permission for that family, and then for me to already back then, 12 years ago, to help make it much, much more personal than I think probably a lot of cemeteries or mortuaries were doing.
Oh,
Would you say you
absolutely.
were early? You guys were early adapters in that, or adopters probably?
Yeah, and before I met you and heard even the term celebrant, I would just be at funerals and just knew they were bad. I mean, I hate to say it, I'm not trying to point the finger, but we were doing our job, but we can
Right.
only bring the deceased and the family guest to a location. Then it's up to a pastor. You could tell they either spent time with them or
Yeah.
they're reading from a manual and saying, and your mother, and it's a man. Oh, I mean, your
Right.
father. And you're like,
Right.
oh my God, you're killing me. So
Right. Right.
like I said, it's never about pointing fingers, and that's why we tried to bring that program to all the major churches, and very few were willing to spend the time to become educated and knowing that you have a huge impact. And I just see when a death occurs, you can bring people back into the fold if that's your mission, if
Yeah.
you serve them the right way, if
Yeah.
you don't spend time with them. And I know how many hours you spent with families
Yeah.
because we had those conversations. It makes all the difference in the world.
It really does.
And you know it. I mean, how many people came up to you after the service and said, "How did you know Mr. Smith?" You're like, "I didn't. I just got to know
Right.
the family."
Yeah.
And it's
Isn't that
2 or 3
amazing?
hours
Yeah.
of just, minimum of having a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really something. Yeah. I'm doing what I'm doing today, all of this work in my work with grief, my work as a death doula, my work as a funeral celebrant, my work as a hospice chaplain, all because in 2014, O'Connor Mortuary began to use me as a funeral celebrant.
Yeah.
So if I don't say it enough, thank you. Thank you for believing in me and give me the opportunity to take my passion and gifting and fall in love with an aspect of life, called end of life and death and dying that I never wasn't on my radar. Let's just say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You took it and ran with it. And
No.
I would call you and text you the second I had an appointment. I'm like, hey, I've got a family.
Yep.
And I was able to show how much value you could bring. People would change their dates. They had their mindset on Thursday at 2 o'clock, and I'm like, Keith's not available to the following Tuesday. All right, then let's do it Tuesday. So
Yeah. Well.
you
Yeah.
you did everything that was I would say is game changing in
Yeah.
our profession. I just wish there
Yeah.
was 1,000 Keith Pages around there
Yeah.
impacting people around our community.
Yeah. Thanks. I
Absolutely.
know. I think in one of our conversations we were talking about cemeteries. You go, I've been to 10,000. I've been to cemeteries 10,000 times, right? Because that's just part of your journey. And I'm
Yeah,
sure you've seen some that are well cared for. They still look really honored and sacred. And then you've seen others that don't, right? You don't have to name names of good ones or not good ones, but what are
sure.
some of those things that you look at and you can quickly distinguish, even the small things that make a cemetery, stand out and really feel like they're hitting the nail on the head when it comes to creating that environment, that space, and then what's there, what's not there.
Yeah. To answer that question, I'd say a majority of the cemeteries I worked with were great to work with.
Good.
Had hardest working staff. Their grounds, their facilities really well maintained. There were a couple that stood out, and the obvious was the second you pulled into the area of the entrance to the cemetery, you could tell it wasn't being kept well.
Mm,
You could see just eroded roads, signs
mm,
that were burnt out,
yeah.
um, lawns that were not watered,
Mm,
markers that were not tended to. But thankfully, as I look back, um, I'm kind of a pain in the ass. I would address it. I'm thinking of one local cemetery, I won't name, kept addressing
yeah.
it, saying, you have the money to keep this thing in pristine condition. And, it's just, I was probably one of many voices that probably voiced that concern of, it's just you're lacking attention.
Yeah.
And so they did change and they did adapt, which was good to
Mm,
see because now when
good.
I see it, because it's in my local area,
Yeah.
it's equal to the other ones that were, uh, I would say, honoring their the
Yeah.
spirit of what they're doing. People are
Good.
paying good money to have their loved ones placed in their ground and cared for. But I do still see opportunities for improvement, maintenance, new propositions that we've talked about.
Mm,
Because I do think the biggest challenge in our profession, call it death care, is staffing and how many people actually want to get in this.
Right.
I don't know, but it's all manpower based. A
Yeah.
cemetery cannot just take care of itself.
Right.
So there is
Yep.
opportunity out there for sure.
Yeah. Um, just had on the top of my brain, then I lost. Oh, we also talked recently about how it seems, from at least from what you gathered, and maybe people will hear this and tell us we're wrong, but it's been my experience too, that families aren't going back to the grave sites as often, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like the reason why people go back is to honor,
Yeah.
to remember, just to pay a visit. It's
Yeah.
as if they're with that loved one again.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it sounds like that's the case. What do you think our culture's doing instead, or are we doing anything instead of returning to the grave sites to help us remember and honor our loved ones? Or is that something that also, as a culture, we need to keep addressing? How we remember and honor our loved ones, if not
Yeah.
paying visits.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's opportunity there. And I don't have exact numbers. It's just from kind of a best guess perspective.
Yeah.
Um, I would say there's opportunities to go back. I think it could be certain dates. Could be a birthday, could be an anniversary, could be
Mhm.
um, any type of milestone. Um, I do know there's events that take place at cemeteries too.
Yeah.
Veterans Day, they have ceremonies there. Um,
Mhm.
so I think to be able to show the value in that, you've got to be able to, like we always do, value. I think you got to kind of justify it in your mind, but tap into the heart. Like, what's this experience? So,
Yeah.
can you get someone to come join a group at a cemetery?
Mm.
Are there walking clubs there? Does that make sense? Is it practical?
Yeah.
I see people walking cemeteries all the time. I've seen them in
Yeah.
groups of three, four, five.
Mm.
And I don't know if they're a family and they're like, hey, we're just going to get our steps in and then go visit the grandma.
Right. Right. Or they
Um,
feel like it's safe. You don't get
yeah, I
mugged
mean,
often in cemeteries or something. I don't know.
as unique as that sound, I've always felt safe in a cemetery. I've never seen any thing other than just peaceful stuff. You're just
Yeah.
people are in very deep thought. There some obviously you can tell are mourning if it's a, recent death, but I've seen people because I was there for years and years and years. Regulars keep coming back, and you knew
Mm.
them because you served them. But I would say they're probably in the minority.
Yeah.
And that's just guesswork.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Mm.
just I think it's probably because what we talked about in the past, our culture being in death denial that has eroded. Cemeteries sometimes feel like they're hidden behind door number one. You know,
Yeah.
Back in the day, or still in the Midwest, a cemetery usually was built around like the church. So you would go every Sunday and you'd go
Ah.
stop and
Wow.
reflect and
That's
think about your
true.
loved one.
Yeah.
Here, talk about Orange County, there's zoning for everything, rightfully so. The schools
Yeah.
here, the retail centers here, cemeteries here.
Yeah.
But I know for years, people who knew what I did, like, are there even any cemeteries? I'm like, yeah, there are. And
Wow.
but
Didn't
they
even know
just
where they
never
were. Yeah.
never cross paths on. So it's
Right.
kind of a combination of those things.
Isn't that funny that in some ways they're not highlighted? They're almost in the back of our mind,
Yeah.
subconsciously or consciously, right? It's just we don't think about it.
Yeah.
I also know the culture is there's a lot of burnout rate. I know there's addictions and divorces and crises and all of that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, more so rather than just say, well, why is that? Because I think you've hit on some of those things. How did you see people that were thriving in the industry? How did you see them model, whether it was self care or a life that allowed them to stay in the game a long time? Because there'll be people listening that are in the industry, maybe some new people. And what would you say are some helpful ways to last a long time if people want to in this industry?
Yeah. I mean, I think it will go for any profession, but I think there's a level of intensity in death care. That's, probably closest would be healthcare if you were in healthcare. So
No,
I think obviously it's get some sleep, exercise, eat
right?
healthy,
Yeah,
hydrate, um,
yeah,
talk about what you've seen, Talk
Yeah.
about what you just did, because I know when we would have a very um, heavy dynamic, I think the best thing I could do to you, Keith, is like I know you were just working with this family, and this was the situation. Hey, how'd it go with, the Smiths?
Yeah.
Let you tell me. Yeah, that was tough. That was really tough. I think a
Yeah.
lot of what we need, men don't do a good job of it.
Right.
I found myself not doing a good job of it, is just talking about what the day
Mm.
looked like and getting that emotional release. I know all the outcomes that can lead to positive and negative. I've experienced both. Uh,
Yeah.
so now that I'm out of it, I can sit there and go, yeah, there's some things I did really well. I'm a lifelong practitioner of yoga. I practice meditation. But there's other times, I'm not going to lie, I probably drank too much. I partied too hard, definitely in my early age.
Yeah.
And you could say, oh, that was just because you're in your 20s and 30s, but that carried on in off and on in certain spots of my life. There's,
Yeah.
a lot of mystery of, wow, what am I doing and how am I doing? So
Mm.
I can self-reflect and say there were some things I thought I did really well, and then some things I can say, whew, that was a
Yeah.
huge mistake, and I
Yeah.
should have sought counsel.
Mm.
So I think it's hard. I think the good thing I've seen the last 6 years and probably before that, but until I started like peeling away of like mental health, that should be
Yeah.
celebrated. I am trying to
Yep.
better mentally and be
Yeah.
healthy. And
Yeah.
to say that out loud and to say it's not a deficit, it's when we ask for help or we look for someone to talk to, I think that's one of the best things you can do.
Mm.
And
Mm.
it's not, I can confide in you privately, and you're probably not going to give me a zinger of an answer because you're just going
Right.
to listen and say, hey, dude,
Yeah.
maybe you relate. And I've been there, done that too. So
Right.
keep marching forward. A lot of what I think we've got to recognize is we are in a very heavy emotional field, and you've got to be able to balance that darkness because there
Yeah.
is. And it's not
Yeah.
that the people are dark, it's just, it's heavy. It
Yeah.
really is.
I think it is because it's a topic so many people are avoiding, right?
Yeah.
And yet, when you're in the industry, we see it every day and almost grow numb to it. So in one way, the rest of the culture is ignoring it, and all of us in the industry are growing numb to it. And so, how do we humanize it and keep it fresh and true and real in front of us?
Yeah, and what I was thinking as you were talking is to be authentic and genuine and try and help people see the value of what you have been able to help other people with.
Yeah.
At sometimes it felt like a wrestling match, and you don't want it to be a wrestling match. You don't want to have to convince or sell someone this is going to be healthier and better for you
Right.
as you are on your journey of grief. So there was times when we could express that and people see value in it. And other times, you have to bless them and let them go and let them
Yeah.
go on their journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's I call it like a time release pill, right? Like, we can offer a resource or an idea or suggestion, but it's just in time, or it's when they're ready for it that they might
Yeah,
reach out and take it.
yeah,
You've talked to me a lot about this mentor, John, in
yeah,
Colorado.
yeah,
And the great thing about mentors is they believe in us, they speak confidence in us, they guide us, and sometimes they also have to, serve up tough things to hear. Was there something that John had to share with you? You don't have to be specific detail, but that you were able to receive and allow it to change how you led or how you made decisions in your role there at O'Connor.
yeah. I would say with John, his influence on me was we were very well aligned with how we saw the world and how we saw funeral service. So it was more of a sounding board. It
Got it.
really wasn't a reality check, even though in a sounding board that can be a reality check. But
Right. Right.
nothing I can think of. It was just,
Right.
hey, does
Yeah.
this make sense? And he invited me into his study group, which was with other people around the nation who were at the top of their craft as far as running businesses. So a lot of it was for me just to be a sponge and
I
learn from
bet.
others and like, wow, oh, okay, that's another idea. And
Yeah.
that was the part that I thought was challenging, probably I would go away for whatever 4 or 5 days and be with this group of people and come back and you have a list of a bunch of ideas. And then what's the reality of implementing them?
Right.
2 good ideas a year, because it
Right.
is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. You
really
just don't have
challenging.
bandwidth.
So,
Yep.
I'm trying to think if there was any what I'm going to call tough love, tough truth. I can't think of it. I think it was just he's always just been very creative. He just always saw the world like a different way.
Mm,
If he wasn't funeral service, he would have been successful anywhere else he went.
love
Uh,
that.
so yeah, I think we just have this kind of the same way we look to the world.
Yeah. Okay, now we're gonna we're head round in third, heading home. But now let's talk about the death culture.
Yeah.
So we are still here. We are 2026, and we're still living in a lot of the death phobic culture, death denial. And does that concern you? And how would you go about influencing it in a positive way if you could? Or who besides? I mean, yeah, mortuaries and cemeteries, but it feels like it's all hands on deck. We ought to all be talking about it. Where else or who else can be voices for talking about this in a way that is helpful and healthy for people that we can shape our culture differently.
Yeah. I'm looking at him. You, buddy. It
Yeah,
when
I
you
want to be
asked,
one. I want to be
does
one.
it concern me? Yes and no. Um, because I believe it's a conversation. I'll go back. When people found out what I did and they didn't know what I did, they were like, wow. They
Yeah,
were very curious or got really quiet and found the exit really quick.
yeah,
But I think most people are genuinely curious. So I think
mm,
there's huge opportunity to still have what you're doing, a podcast, a group of people. It could be an intimate group of 6 people of talking about this. Or God, if we got in front of, 6,000 people and said, DEFCON 2027, here we come. We're gonna,
right. Yeah,
rock the world.
yeah,
There's still tons of opportunity just to say, we're not selling anything. It's,
mm,
I think, philosophy and concept of, what I don't say I came up with. It was just me tripping on my own words when I was challenged by a family. Said, we're not going to do anything for my mom. I said, okay, that's fine. And they gave me all their rational reason. I said, when was her birthday? And she said, oh, a month ago. Did you guys celebrate her birthday? She's like, yeah. Then why wouldn't you want to celebrate her life? And I said,
yeah,
you don't have to commit to me. You don't have to commit to anything I'm offering, but I'd love for you to go home and just think about that. And her reasons was there won't be a whole lot of people there. She's not churched, this, that, that. I said, that's fine. We don't have to go to
mm,
church. We don't need a
right,
lot of people. Well,
right.
I said, if you want me to help you celebrate her life. We can do that. Here's a location, here's a person. And you might be surprised, more than 6 people might show up. And sure enough, 30
Yeah,
people showed up. And I remember
that's
walking to her
something.
to the car, literally her crying, hugging me, and saying, thank you so much, just because that's not
Yeah,
what I experienced when my dad died. So when dad died, mom said, don't do anything. So that's kind of a statement parents will say. It's come from that humble humility of, don't do
yes,
anything for me. I'm going to spare your
right,
emotions and I'm going to save you some money. Well,
right,
you're never going to spare the emotions because they're there.
right. Yep,
Yes, are they not going to spend $20,000? That's not the point. It's the
right.
point of some type of ceremony with community, with or without.
Wow.
So concern, it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's still there. It's never going to go away because I think this is going to be an uphill battle until there are people like you that can get a greater audience or get greater attention. People just kind of think through it and say, um, you know, celebrate a birthday, celebrate an anniversary, celebrate
yeah,
Christmas together or
yeah.
Hanukkah, whatever. Why
Right.
are we doing the most pivotal emotional period of time that can
Yeah,
really teach the room the good and bad of this person? Because
yeah.
we all have, good and bad. It's like, let's celebrate it and let's examine
Right,
it.
right.
So,
So what? Yeah, what does that do? What do you think that? I mean, if what does that do to us if we don't honor and we don't celebrate, we don't acknowledge somebody's life and death and passing? What is that?
yeah,
what are the negative effects? What's the warning for us all to remind all of our people to keep celebrating, honoring, remembering?
one, we pass it down generationally.
Yeah,
Two, and I'm going to share what we've been with. I would say worst case scenario, I've had families who I know. Personal friends of mine commit suicide. Families were not doing anything, were shame-filled. It's like, no, no, no. That
Wow.
one last act did not equal
Mm,
his life. It was a tragedy. He was suffering.
yeah.
But leading up to that, your son, and I'm reflecting on a good friend of mine, was an amazing lifeguard, saved over
Right.
100 people. He had
Wow.
2 kids,
Wow.
was a rock star football player, was beloved by hundreds and hundreds. But
Mm,
now that we examine mental health is real, drug addiction is
yep.
real, we
Yep.
suffer, we're in pain.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to come and comfort you, and everyone's mourning and their hearts are heavy. We need to find a place to mark him, talk
Mm,
about him, release him, as you know.
right.
I think it's one of the healthiest things we can do.
So good.
I think when we don't do it, for the closest to the deceased, it's just going to be an uphill climb. And
Yeah.
we're still going to have to climb. It's still going to have to go through. We're never going around it. But it's so much easier. And we are meant to walk this journey together, not alone. I mean,
Yeah.
in life and in death. So,
Yeah.
uh, those are the things I still have passion for. And when I still get calls from my friends in the community, it's like, hey, can you put me in touch with the funeral home? Absolutely. And I'll counsel them and say, well, what do you plan to do? It's none of my business. I'm not trying to put them in
Right.
a situation, but I'll just say, hey, here's what I learned for 30 years. Take it or leave it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, I will. I'll close with this one. Somebody is maybe just getting started in the industry, right? Or they're new. They're still, green. What advice, what input, what encouragement would you give them for people that are starting out?
Well, it's like any profession. Do your research. Look at what that is going to look like for you. What are you going to make? What's that career look like financially? That's important. We all
Yeah.
have bills to pay.
Yeah.
Um, I would interview multiple companies.
Mm,
I would if I'm the one looking for a job, as much as you want to interview me, Keith, I want to interview you. Come up
yeah.
with a list of questions. What are my hours going to be? What are the expectations? As I mentioned, what is the pay? Um, what are you doing to improve your team's lives? Can you give me one or two examples what that's looked like?
Mm,
I think if you're interviewing with HR, general manager, or if you make it to a final round of an owner,
yeah.
um, show them that you're curious, because I
Yeah.
think that's where people thrive. Um, and I would say just do your research and ask and say, can I talk to your team? Find out what their life's
Mm,
like.
yeah.
Um,
Right.
I know people who've told me, I've always thought about this. I can't tell people because it seems weird, but I know this is my calling. And
Mm,
I've met a lot of people who they've known from a young age and they do very well.
yeah.
I've found people who come in for the wrong reasons and we weren't able to figure that out in the right time. And
Right.
it just is not a good fit, and as an employer,
Yeah.
if you hire the wrong person, financially, emotionally, all that is such a challenge to
Mm,
bless and release, So it's really, I would say it's no different than any other profession, but if this speaks to you, it's very rewarding. I think for the average person who goes in funeral service, um, they can do very well.
mm,
But you have to just be fully aware of what you're getting into, and it's hard to, and that's why we started to figure out slowly. Let's do some job shadowing. Why don't you come shadow here? Uh,
ah,
you came in, you interviewed well, but can you come in one day a week for just a couple hours and drop you into different departments? Does this make
ah,
sense for you? You
yeah.
you need to figure out as much as we do, and if you
Right.
come back, I love what I'm seeing. I love your team. Okay, then maybe we're a fit. But if
Yeah.
you come back and like, oh my gosh, I was just in the prep room, as we call it, or the embalming room, and
Yeah.
I will never go back in there again. It's like, okay, I
Right.
respect that too. That's,
Right.
you knew it when I first got into the profession. For probably a year and a half, 2 years, I had what I call mortmares. I had dreams that were pretty horrific that I worked through.
Yeah.
But there's some very gnarly stuff you'll experience, to say the
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. And not everybody even that goes that route, like it doesn't go into the mortuary side, right? I mean, the mortician, embalming,
Yeah,
cremation side,
yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah,
there's an audience, there's a need for folks in that side. And then
yeah.
there's also the side that's more the care, family support, walking with the families through it, right? So it seems like there's room for everybody depending on what their interest is to be in the industry.
There are, and as you know, we have administration, you have HR, you have, like I said, the front line, when I say funeral directors who are meeting with families, you have the people who are experts at preparing bodies and cremation. Depending on the size of the funeral home, you may be doing everything, or you
Yeah,
may be in a department doing your own thing. So
right.
there is no one size fits all, but inevitably
Yeah,
you will be. I think, exposed to many different scenarios. So you
yeah,
have to be able to process that and be able to say, hey, for me, it was awkward at first.
yeah,
I
right.
wasn't comfortable around grieving people. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow,
Right.
what am I doing?
Yeah. Lastly, are you still available to do any consulting, coaching, speaking in the industry if people are interested?
Sure. I mean, I've got a new career, but I have been helping some of my friends in funeral service with leadership, with training. I kind of do it on a case by case basis,
Okay.
but always willing to talk, always
Yeah.
willing to encourage. Um, or if I can't, I can point them in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, I just love that you had a 30-year career. You did everything you wanted to do, and then when you knew it was time for a new challenge, you did it before you burned out, before you hit the wall, and you're reinventing yourself, but yet you're still sharing all of your experiences to people like me and people who watch or listen to this show to offer some guidance, encouragement, support. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love helping people. I love the time you and I work together. I have great memories and friends still in the field that, like I said, always a phone call away to chat with anyone.
Okay. So
Yeah.
can I'll put in our show notes for people how to reach out to you. I'll just get the
Sure.
right contact info and then make sure, they're not all love bombing you via cell phone. So however, or
No, that's
maybe they
fine.
want some love
That's
bombing
the
cell
easiest way to
phone.
get a hold of me. You can put my cell phone in the notes.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. It's
Okay.
all good. I mean, most people know someone who knows someone to get hold of someone, and
Right.
just a nobody at this point, so I'm sure they won't call.
All right. Neil
Yeah.
O'Connor, thank you for coming on.